Eitan Barak is 20. Adar Bar Simon was 20. Amutz Greenberg was 45. Benyam Mugel was 20. Bar Rahav was 21. Oz Nevilovich was 21. Nisim Carmelli was 21. Tzafri Bar Or was 32. Tzvi Kaplan was 28. Gilad wasn't told. Yacobi was 21. Max Steinberg was 24. Moshe Malka was 20. Arun Shul was 21. Arun Simcha Noya was 22. Ben Arnona was 19. Sean Minchaim was 19. Daniel Haramish was 20. These are just 17 in the Sean and there are 43 of them. There are thousands of contacts of block that's going off there. That's 300 soldiers are wounded. How do you speak of such things? How does one have courage to talk of 43 people that put their life on the line and actually give their life to us? How do you speak of such things? And the real question is, what possible lesson can we learn from such things? We have no idea what's going on right now. We have no idea. We have no comprehension. Could be another Jew that was just killed as we speak. We have no clue. There's thousands of Jews right now in Gaza. Literally putting their life on the line so we could have a home. And it's not just we're fighting against Hamas. The entire world is against us. We're not an ally to Eretz Yisrael. It's fascinating. No matter how many videos the IDF will produce, still, the world hates us. A friend of mine lives in Miami, his whole car was destroyed over Shabbos. He's vandalized. Just an hour over Shabbos was over 1,000 people protesting against Eretz Yisrael. What's the message? What's our job? What can we gain from this? The Ramchal, in Derech Hashem, in the beginning of Derech Hashem, the second chapter, he writes that the purpose of life, the reason why God created the world is for one purpose only, in order to bestow goodness upon people. Because if God is absolute perfection, that means there's nothing lacking, then there's no necessity for a world other than to give. Because for your own self, there's no need. And if one would ask, says Ramchal, so what type of goodness would he give? Obviously, he give the ultimate goodness. So the question is, what is the ultimate goodness? What could be the greatest goodness that God could bestow upon people? So if God is ultimate and perfect and 100%, then there's nothing greater than God. So the ultimate goodness and pleasure, logically, then is God Himself. So the purpose of life is for God to give Himself over to people. Because that in itself is ultimate pleasure. But of course, says the Ramchal, to obtain such pleasure, you have to work. You have to work. Ramchal, another place in Das Huna says, the person just really gets tzedakah, gets supported. That's not ultimate pleasure. Ultimate pleasure when you earn something yourself. When you build something yourself, when you work hard, you toil. Life is all about toiling and reaping benefits from your hard work. That feeling, that's ultimate pleasure. And that's life. The Chal continues. Rabbi Shmuel writes in chapter 4 that a person was put into this world. He was put in a world of physicality, in the physical plane. He was, everything surrounding him is physical. He eats, drinks, sleeps, goes to work, he has to make money in order to survive. He lives in the physical world. Everything around you, everything around us, humanity, is physical. And we know physical is totally opposite from the spiritual. Physical has dimensions, has limitations. The spiritual has no limitations, limitless. So one would say, one is totally removed from God. It says in Chal that our job is within this world to sanctify things. Thank you. To take the unholy, to take the impure and make it pure. To take mere physical things and sanctify them. Take grape juice, grapes, make it the grape juice and make kiddush on it. To take bread and make hamotzi. To take a fruit and make a bracha. To take water and make a sham. To daven. Make your life, your physical life, into a holy wall. And that's when you take something from darkness into light. That's when it says you walk from the shadows into the sunlight. When you take something physical and you're able to elevate it to a holier thing, to put meaning, purpose into your life. It's not just a mere physical, every day is its own day. Rather, you're working for a goal, you put purpose, meaning to your life. Every day is a means to bring beauty into one's life. And ultimately, your physical world around you becomes holy. With this idea, Rav Dessler wants to answer a phenomenal question, I think an obvious question that everyone asks. A couple of weeks ago, we read in the Torah about the Jews about to conquer the land of Israel. And Reuben, the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of God, decide that we don't want to go to Israel. We want to settle outside the outskirts of Israel, on the other side of the Jordan. So they approach Moshe, and they tell Moshe, we have a lot of property, and we would like to settle here because we feel it's best for our property, for our cattle. So the question is, how can you fathom, after 40 years, a generation dies out? You have to understand the mindset. And you're giving them now. You're about to enter the land of Israel. It's right next to you. You see the hills. It's not that they're far away. They're right there by the Jordan. They're right there. How thick, how wide is the Jordan? They're right there. And they decide, we want to stay here. So Dessler says, and the same idea that we just mentioned, that we were put in the physical world. And that means everything physical has a means to serve God, has a purpose. In fact, the Yitzchak Zev Soloveitchik, known as the Brisker Rav, in the opening of his book in Chumash, he quotes a Gemara, a fascinating Gemara. He said, L'asa Lava, in the future, maybe a Kadosh Baruch Hu Sefer Torah. Hashem is going to bring a Sefer Torah. Messiah will come. This is obviously metaphorically. God will put a roll open a Sefer Torah. The Yomer, he would say, L'mi sha'ayisik ba, whoever toiled in this Torah, Yavo vita schara, come now and reap your benefits. Miyad, Nipatzin, Ubayin, right away the nations of the world will come. Nichnas Lefanov, for the first nation that will barge right in, Malchus Israel will be Rome. Armim in the Lefanov, and they will tell before Rabbi Shmuel, the master of the world, how Shvakim Takninu, many bridges we made, many irrigation fields we made, how many bathhouses we made, how much silver and gold that we have. The Kulam, and all of this that we did, the empire that we built, we did it for the growth of Klal Yisrael. We did it for the Jewish people. Why? That's what the Romans are going to tell update. Tell Hashem. Amalek Kadosh Baruch Hashem Uspadim Shaitim Shalom, crazy people of the world. Kol Mash Yisasam, anything you did for yourself, you did for yourself, not for the Jewish people. And right after that, you know who's going to come next? They'll leave. Then Persia, Iran will come. Let me say the same thing. We made a lot of bridges. We fought a lot of wars. We conquered a lot of land. And we only did it for the Jewish people. And yet Hashem will respond again. Crazy people. You did it for yourselves. You had no intention for doing it for the Jewish people. And every nation after that will come before God and tell God the same thing. Fascinating Gemara. What does this mean? First of all, what does it mean that how can they lie before God? Everything is open. The books are open. Everything is revealed. How can they lie before God? And yet God did not call them liars. God called them that they were crazy. The difference between being crazy and being a liar. So explains the Briskura fascinating. Brings down a Rashi at the beginning of the Torah. Rashi says, brings out Medrash. That everything was created for the purpose of Torah. Everything was created for the purpose of Torah. If it exists, it's a purpose for Torah. Somehow, everything that exists has a purpose, somehow to fulfill God's will. If there's no purpose for God's will, then it doesn't exist. It must be. This water was produced only because we could make a bracha shakal on it. This table was produced so we could have Shabbos table on it, so we could hear shiurim on it. Everything has a purpose. Somehow to fulfill God's plan. And if there's no purpose, then it doesn't exist. So the nations of the world are going to tell God, if we were successful, if we actually did build bridges and build baths and acquired so much wealth, if we did conquer lands, then it must be there was a plan. There must be it was your plan. There must be there was a plan somehow ultimately to fulfill the power of Torah. So therefore we deserve to reap the benefits. So God responds, you're right, you're not liars. But you're crazy because you didn't do it for the sake of God. You did it for the sake of yourselves. You didn't do the sake for the Jewish people to learn Torah. You did it for your own self. But we see a fundamental lesson. That everything in life that you come across, everything has a meaning, somehow ultimately has a purpose, somehow destined to somehow fulfill the book of the Torah. And with this, Redefzer said, this is what Ruvain's intentions were. Ruvain said, I would love to live in the land of Israel. Are you kidding me? But I know that God gave me a lot of property, a lot of cattle, a lot of money. And I know to fulfill this purpose, the best way to use this in the name of God would be in outside Israel. So in fact, Reuben was sacrificing his own portion only for the benefit of God. Because he wanted to serve God with the stuff that he has. And he knew the best way to do it would be in that specific land. He understood that this land was the best place to be. And that's what tells us what Reuben's intent was. But this does not answer the complete question. Because it wasn't just Reuben that was asking to settle outside the land. There was someone else. There was God. God also wanted to settle outside the land. He didn't have a lot of property. More than that. What was Moshe's problem with with the whole approach? Was it because they had a lot of money? That wasn't his problem. What was his problem? That they're about to enter and fight battles, and you're going to skip out on us. He accused them that you're going to be just like the spies. Just like when the spies went, and they came back, they caused fear in the eyes of the people, and they were too afraid to conquer the land, and therefore God got upset with us, and we were decreed to stay in 40 years in the desert. So you're going to cause the same fear. If you back out, the rest of the nations are going to back out. Nothing to do with money. Moreover, it wasn't really Reuben that approached Moshe. It was God who approached Moshe. Reuben is the oldest. But it was God. V'yavai b'nei God. God came before Ubnei Reuben, and only after that Reuben. And when Moshe responds to them, he first responds to Moshe, thank God. He speaks to God first, and then only after he speaks to Reuben. It was God they had a problem with. It was God. See something fascinating about God. If you go back to the blessings of Jacob before he died, what he mentions to God is fascinating. I'll read it in English. It's in Hebrew, you have to know what the word God is. God, Gadud Yadenu. God will recruit a regiment. God was an army. He was a platoon. When you look back at what he had, he didn't have a lot of money. You know what he had? Reuben had a lot of money. Well, thank God, but God, you know what he had? He was very strong. Two separate things. In fact, the Kliyakar says this. Didn't put them together. Didn't say that both of them had money and strength. No. It specifically said Reuben had money and God had strength. And some reason, God wanted to stay into the borders of Eretz Yisrael. Now it makes sense now why Moshe was afraid. Because if God symbolizes the battalion, symbolizes the soldier of Klal Yisrael, so if they don't enter, the rest of the Jewish people will be afraid. So what was God doing outside over there? Why did he want to stay outside? So the Kabbalists tell us, Talmud from the Ramchal, by the name of Moshe Davar, he says, that his job was to fight off the bad influences of the outside world. Not only fight off the bad influences of the outside world, his job was to take all that outside world and anything that was impure, make it pure. In fact, Hayar Din spells it Har, the mountain of Din. Har Din, of justice. His job was to take everything that was unjust out there and make it just. He was there to protect Klal Yisrael. If any enemy that would approach, he was the battalion to stop any enemy from entering. And that's why he stood by the borders. His job was to stay by the borders and to protect Klal Yisrael from any invasion. They were the army of Klal Yisrael. But you see something fascinating. This whole parsha is called Parshas Matos. It starts off with Moshe speaks to the Matos, Rosh and Esau, the head of the tribes of Klal Yisrael. In fact, after they agree that they're going to enter and fight battles with Klal Yisrael, again Moshe reiterates, it's only the second time in the Torah. Hashem Moshe reiterates that I'm going to speak to the elders, the Matos of Klal Yisrael. It's a fascinating way to call a Mata. Usually you call the heads of the Shvatim, the tribes. In this case, the only time you ever mention, the only time in the Torah, it's mentioned as Matos. Why the change of terminology? You know what another name for a Mata besides a tribe means? A Mata is a staff. And a Shevet also means a tribe. What's another name for a Shevet? A stick. What's the difference between a staff and a stick? There's two ways how to empower yourself, to put power, to become a leader. You can either be like Stalin, you can be like Hitler, you can put fear in the eyes of people. You can carry a big stick. But there's another way to become a leader. You carry a staff. You show support. A staff is for support. You support everyone. You give everyone a support system. You are their bedrock. You naturally become their leader. What Klal Yisrael is, it's a support system. We help each other. We're a family. We always will be related. We support each other. We're staffs. And with God being in the border, there's a support system. God has to do his job, defend Klal Yisrael. And we have to do our job. In fact, the Talmud tells us, Gemara Makkos, it says when David Melech would be waging war, the pasuk says, Ragleinu, our feet, B'Sharach Yerushalayim, were in the gates of Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem. The Talmud asks, why was David's feet or his soldiers' feet in the gates of Yerushalayim? If they're middle of waging wars outside Yerushalayim, he was fighting with Syria and all other places. So the Talmud tells us, read inside. Omer Bishul ben Levi. Bishul ben Levi says, "My said the pasuk is on Nedes Hayivleinu B'Shrach Yerushalayim." Our feet stood in the gates of Yerushalayim. Mi garam. So it says the Gemara. Mi garam la'gleinu Shalom b'Milchama. What caused our success in war? Says David. Because Shar Yerushalayim shall oiskim b'Torah. Because in the gates of Yerushalayim there were people learning Torah. There's a support system. The soldiers support us by protecting us. But it's our job to protect them through our learning of Torah. It's our job to protect them by davening on their behalf. It's a support system. They support us. And our job equally is to support them. If they give their life for us, then our job is to give our life for them. They protect us. We study and we daven on their behalf. Now I know that what's happening now, they're doing their job. 43 soldiers did their job. 300 soldiers did their job. And 64,000 soldiers are continuing to do their job. But the question still stands, are we doing our job? That's the question. Are we doing our job? Rav Color, by the year of 1948, when the war just broke out, he spoke in his yeshiva in Lakewood. It was only a couple of years that it was open. And he spoke about what's happening with danger for the Jewish nation. And he said that it's everyone's responsibility to feel the pain of those people living in Israel. To feel what they feel. And we find that by Moshe Rabbeinu. It says when Moshe Rabbeinu went out from the house of Paro, he went out at Achad to his brothers, he saw their pain. He felt their pain. The Talmud tells us, a person's obligated to daven for his friend, to pray for his friend. Hainu when? Shiargish tzara, when he feels the person's pain. He ends off, which applies still today, that we're surrounded by wolves. We have no allies. It's our job to do our part and daven and study on their behalf. We all watch the news, we all read the news. Every second on my phone I get updates what's going on. I've never watched so many videos on the news for weeks. You know what the question is? Are we holding the Tehillim while we read the news? Do we open the Tehillim after we do read the news? Do we decide that maybe we should add maybe a little bit more learning and Torah study on their behalf? Do we feel their pain? The question is not if they're doing their job. That's obvious that they're doing their job. The real question is, are we doing our job? And this is the time. Right now it's Rosh Chodesh Av. For some, it's the week of tragedy. Chazal tell us that this week could be a magnificent week. Tisha B'Av could become a holiday. The biggest bracha that we could have is if we do our job. When we do read the news, we say Kibbutz Tehillim. We add a little bit more learning to our schedule. Learn an extra Mishnah. You have no idea what this could affect. Learn an extra Mishnah. Say an extra Tehillim. Don't just read the news. Don't just go to rallies. Go and say Tehillim. When's the last time did we actually pay attention when we say Shemona Esrei? Yerushalayim Merkachecha, davening for Jerusalem, davening for Mashiach. When do we pay attention to this? This is the time we have to pay. Let's do our job. If they can go out and give their lives for us, then we at least should daven for their behalf. We should say an extra Kibbutz Tehillim. We should learn a little bit more. We should try to daven. Pay attention to our davening. This is what Hashem wants. Let's do our job. Let's be those people that are standing in the gates of Yerushalayim, supporting our family, fighting for us. And that will be the greatest success. And it's tragic that it has to come down to this in order to bring Klal Yisrael together. It's tragic that 3 boys had to be killed in order to bring Achdus, unity in Klal Yisrael. But once we're in this situation, let's make the best of it. And let's do what we're supposed to do and what we do best. Right? I want to end off. With Hashem, we should see a true success. Success, as we say in Aleinu, that the enemies before God and enemies before us will fall, and Mashiach will rise, and there will be shalom in the entire world. I would like to ask at this time Yair to say Kibbutz Tehillim and Sheberach for the Tzah.